Welcome back into the show, Metabolic Coaching with Dr. Justin Anderson. Cut the Killer Carbs right here on AM 580. Check out the website, metabolic-coaching.net. Of course, along the way, if you have any comments, questions, 806-745-5800, text or call in. Feel free to do so. We're holding Steve Burns over for the show.
Holding him hostage.
Yeah, that's great, Steve. Glad to see Steve Burns back with us. Good morning, Doctor. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing fine.
Glad to
Great.
see you back on the show.
It's always good to see you, Wade.
Yeah, we're trying, right? Don't try, do, as Yoda would say, right?
That's right?
Don't try, do. And that's what Steve Burns is going to talk about, because he's kind of doing the plan, right? But he was saying, and I'll let you tell the story, but just to kind of promo it, I guess, is that a lot of people get on it and they do it for a few weeks and they feel good, and they go back to crazy high carb day and just eating carbs all the time, then they feel like crap, and then they go, oh, okay, well, maybe there was something to that. Maybe I ought to get... So this yo-yoing of what happens is really a big problem for a lot of people. I've been caught up in that as well.
Well, just passing in and out through the his shows before mine, and passing through the doorway, he said, oh, yeah, I've done the program. I've lost a little weight.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just asked him, well, why don't you tell us your story?
Yeah,
Right.
Go ahead, Steve Burns.
Well, from hearing you talk, I'd always been kind of interested in any of the anti-inflammation things and into nutrition, and I'd read Wheat Belly and read several of the other books about it. And hearing you talk and putting it in such really simple to understand terms really helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
Several months ago, probably more towards the beginning of the year, I jumped on and started doing it, and pretty quickly dropped about 20 pounds and was feeling
Awesome.
great.
Now, did you do that because Dr. Anderson follows up from our show, and you were like probably driving back to the gun store listening and going, hey, I want to try that out?
Oh yeah, and
Hey, that happened to Dave Lewis, the Colonel, who co-hosts with me on Wednesday through Friday. He did the same thing. He was high blood pressure. He had all these issues going on, and he did the same thing, and he's feeling great too.
Yeah,
From this show.
There's no doubt that I still have some pounds to lose. I'm still a fat boy, but I'm feeling a lot better. Don't have the mental fog and haze, and my blood pressure's back down to good levels when it's gotten out of control several times.
Yeah.
Were you ever on medication for it?
No. I've been trying to avoid that at all costs and do it the all-natural way.
The deal with some of the blood pressure medications, like the beta blockers, is they cause weight gain. And hydrochlorothiazide causes insulin resistance and weight gain. It can eventually contribute to you becoming diabetic. So, I mean, trying to do it with diet, that's a smart thing.
And really, so I was, before in the break, we were talking about, I was telling my story that I kind of fell off the wagon, so to speak, got busy and hectic and stress, and, reverted back to the quick, easy foods.
Right.
The things you don't have to think about. It's presented in front of you, and you gobble it down and move on, and that's the wrong thing to do. It didn't take but about 4 weeks of that, and I was feeling horrible. My joints ached. I had no energy, mental haze, mental fog, and my blood pressure got to a really horrible place.
What kind of numbers did your blood pressure go when you're off the diet versus kind of on the diet?
I was at, just a week and a half ago, I was back up to 183 over 96.
That's too high.
And
Man.
Having a headache and but once I got back on cutting the killer carbs, it took 2.5-3 days, and I was back down to 120 over 80.
Isn't that funny?
And everybody was telling me, go to the doctor right now, go to the doctor.
Yep, right.
And no,
Don't want to have a stroke.
I'm just going to chill out. I'm going to fast, and then I'm going to be on track. I'm going to cut the killer carbs. I fasted for, I'm going to say probably 12, 18 hours-ish, or very little of anything, and went right back into the cutting the killer carbs, and it shocked the system back to where it needed to be, and now I'm maintaining.
So you did, see, that's the key there too. I mean, we talk about it, but intermittent fasting along with, here's what I think it would be and this is what I'm going to start. This is the killer Wade Wilkes plan. You take what Dr. Anderson's saying, all right,
I'll
And
start you a website.
And
Wade.
then, yeah, and I'm going to create my own website on this one. But then you take what he talks about, you incorporate it in with intermittent fasting, which he talks about that, and then on top of all that, you really end up in a situation. Well, let me say this, and then add a little exercise on top of that. And when I'm talking about exercise, I'm talking about high intensity intermittent training, the HIIT training, where like I do it 5 days a week. I used to work out long hours, like strength training, like an hour long in the gym, lift weights, added cardio into it. But, an hour plus, I was like, man, I'm getting burned out on this, doing it all the time. Well, I have found that if you take the combination of what we talk about on this show with the intermittent fasting, with some HIIT training, which is really only like 20 minutes. 20 minutes and you're done. That's where you may go.
So that's a good combination.
You see what I'm saying, Doctor? I mean, that's the Wade Wilkes plan, and I'm telling you
if
that
everybody
works.
will go to wadewilkesplan.com right now, you can sign up. It's only $4 a day.
No, but I mean, but did you incorporate any exercise into it?
Well, I've always been a guy that liked to go out and take walks at night.
Okay, that's
You know,
something.
And I've always, for 30 years, I've been a pretty avid hiker and climber. I love getting out and just strapping the pack on and walking sometimes for days.
Good.
And unfortunately, I haven't gotten a chance to do that at all this year, which makes me kind of sad. But I still get out and walk around the park a few times a week.
Yeah, and the good message for people out there is that really if you want to lose weight and control your blood pressure, these sort of things, it's about 95% diet.
True.
And it's about 5% exercise. And so if you had an exam and 95% of it was math and 5% was English, concentrate on studying your math facts. And so concentrate on the diet. That's what you can do to help yourself.
I think I'm just in a little bit different situation, though, Doctor, because, when I had cancer back when I was 22 years old, I had a carcinoid tumor. And, again, I'm at Army one day and I'm coughing up blood all over the place. At the time, my general practitioner, the doc in the box guy, kept prescribing Bioxin, saying, oh, you've got walking pneumonia. Well, it turned out to be a carcinoid tumor in my lung. So they immediately did a lobectomy, cut that. You got 5 lobes in the body. You got 3 on the right, 2 on the left, which is a bigger lobe. And they took it out. So I'm really only operating on 1.5 lungs. And for me, if I don't do cardio, this is just me, and everybody's different. But I notice if I don't do some real cardio over a long period of time, I get where I'm just completely out of breath. Just, getting up, if I get up quickly and have to, say, run down the hallway, I'll be just gagging for air.
Wade, we'll get those extra pounds off you. You won't be out of breath.
That's true. That's absolutely,
we'll take
you're
care of
absolutely
that.
correct. But I know that you're right, even with the weight coming off, if I don't do any cardio training at all, I don't feel good, because I think it's because it's a low oxygen deal, right? Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. I can tell you this: if you switch over, you've often said that you feel good, you feel better when you fast. That's because you switch over to running on ketones when you fast, and your heart runs 25% more efficiently on ketones. Your brain runs 25% more efficiently on ketones, and it's the same thing when you do. The metabolic coaching diet is a very low carbohydrate diet, so you switch over to running on ketones. That's why the brain fog goes away, because you're running on fat for fuel instead of running on sugar for fuel. I have a question, like a practical question. So you're a busy guy. You run your shop. So what do you eat during the day? Because people think, oh, it's going to be complicated. How do I eat? How do I eat no bread or no potatoes, that sort of thing? So what is a day for you?
Lots and lots of burritos. All right, but when I'm on track, I'm doing just like you said. I unroll that burrito and I use a fork. That tortilla becomes the plate, and it works out great. You've got the flavor fulfillment that you need. You've got the nutrition that you need, and you don't have that killer tortilla.
Yeah.
Also do
the burritos from across the street.
sometimes, yes.
Okay.
and it doesn't take long before you get into the habit of asking for a fork with your burrito.
Right. Yeah, you use a lot of forks.
Here's a great text coming in from Greg. He says, this is an eye-opener stuff, but he went on a cruise, and I feel for him. I did the exact same thing. But he said this was an eye-opener. I just returned from a cruise, and I bet 85% of the people on the boat was overweight, and most of them were obese.
Yeah.
I boarded the boat at 1:59. I did eat more than the usual carbs, but tried to be good. I indulged some, but I was shocked when I returned home because I had gained 8 pounds. I will lose it back, but I'm surprised how fast I gained it.
Yeah. A lot of that weight gain is. Did your weight go up when your blood pressure went up?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that weight gain is fluid, and what happens is when you eat a lot of carbohydrates, your body makes a lot of a hormone called insulin. Insulin helps you deal with the carbohydrates and regulate your blood sugar. And that insulin causes your kidneys to hold on to more fluid, and when your kidneys hold on to more fluid, then you end up when your blood pressure going higher and higher and higher, and also there's swelling around your abdomen and swelling just in different parts of your body. So some of that, and the same thing happened to me. I went to Cub Scout camp with my son, and I don't remember if I gained 10 pounds or something over Cub Scout camp, and I was still trying to I didn't eat any bread down there, trying to do relatively low carb, but that weight tends to come off kind of quickly when you get rid of the fluid, and that's why the blood pressure comes down quickly.
What happened, back to Greg's point, I went on 2 separate 10-day cruises, and this has been way before I met Dr. Anderson. But this is what happened. One cruise I took, it was out of Miami to Panama, 10-day cruise. On that cruise, I pretty much had the idea that, you know what, I'm not going to exercise. I'm just going to eat, because on a cruise ship you can eat 24/7. Pizzeria all night long. You can order it to your stateroom. You can do whatever. And I just ate and enjoyed it and drank and did all that. Okay. Well, I gained 10 pounds in 10 days on a 10-day cruise. Mm-hmm. Then the next year I did another 10-day cruise, which was out of L.A. to Acapulco and back up to L.A., 10-day cruise. On that one, I thought, I'm going to stay and they have really nice workout facilities on these cruise ships. I mean, top of the line. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to do like I did last year. I'm going to do an experiment. And I'm not going to eat all the junk foods. I'm just going to work out in the gym every day, eat healthy, eat the fresh salmon, because you can find good choices on a cruise ship, right? I mean, you can get fresh salmon, you can get lobster, you can get all the, that. So I stuck with that.
I've had clients, they can find
and
good choices anywhere.
I lost 10 pounds on one 10-day cruise. On the other 10-day cruise, I gained 10.
Yeah.
So you can do it.
You can do it. You can find good choices anywhere, just like burritos. You can find burritos. Just open up the tortilla, use a fork, eat the stuff out of the middle. Eggs, bacon, cheese burritos, meat burritos. I do that a lot. And then what about at home?
I'll do a lot of salads, usually with chicken or steak involved. And I'll eat a decent amount of eggs. It's always a pretty good staple for me.
Love eggs. They're great.
It doesn't take long before you actually start to enjoy a good salad.
Yes, that's actually
doesn't take long at all.
Yeah, I had one yesterday. I mean, I was hungry, and I thought, hey, look, I'm hungry. Instead of just going through the drive-through and getting this carb-laden lunch, I actually physically got out of the truck and went in and got my salad, went to the salad bar, fresh spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, some hard-boiled eggs, and I was good to go. I mean, that totally satisfied me more so than the fat-laden burrito.
For snacking now, I will do a lot of nuts, pecans,
Pecans
some
are the best.
macadamia nuts. I'll do some pine nuts, pumpkin seeds, and this weekend I drove to Austin to visit some friends, and instead of the normal complement of stopping at the McDonald's on the drive-through,
right.
I had a bag of pre-shelled pecans. I had 3 apples, and I didn't miss the fast food on the drive.
That's a good tip. If you're going to go on vacation, pack some snacks with you in the car when you go.
Oh, my wife is all about that.
We do the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll grab shelled pecans or salted almonds, that sort of thing, so we have something to munch on in the car.
But it's amazing, though, Steve, back to your story about, because I've felt it too, and we're about the same age. You know, we're getting up there, you know, in our late 40s where these things really start to affect us because we still kind of, a lot of Americans, the traditional American diet has gotten worse, number one. But number two, we still think, oh, I can eat all that stuff like I did in my 20s, and you can't. Your metabolism starts to slow as we age. There's a lot of factors that it comes into it. And that's something that a lot of people don't recognize. And the next thing they know, they turn around and they're 50, 60, 70 pounds overweight, and they're like, you know, what happened? Well, what happened is you ate a bunch of junk.
And while I was on my trip, we ended up going to Black's Barbecue in Lockhart.
Yeah.
You know, awesome, famous place and
Yeah.
wonderful food. And I was the only one that wasn't loading up on all of the sides
Yeah.
on my plate.
The potato salad,
Oh, yeah.
big
Macaroni
thick bread.
salad.
You know,
Woo-hoo!
yeah, I love all those things.
Yep.
But I'm also trying to feel better. I did not want to feel horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after you know what was happening to me a couple of weeks ago, I didn't want to go back to that. And I had a huge plate of barbecue and loved every bite. And when it was done, I felt good and
You
still
did-
feel good.
Yeah, because the other day I did the same thing where I made a mistake of, and I love the chicken fry at Cattle Baron. They have one of the best chicken fries with extra cream gravy. I went in there on a Friday, and I
It's like wheat, and wheat.
Oh yeah, you know, doctor. And I remember the side was, well, it comes with cream gravy, mashed potatoes, and I thought, no, I'll take rice, which is not really good, a substitute, right? So I have all this rice and cream gravy and chicken fried steak. It was wonderful. But you know what? The next day, man, my hands were kind of swollen,
Yeah.
not feeling good. I'm like, man, that's, you know, whereas I could have had the prime rib on the lunch menu with steamed broccoli, I would have been fine, but I had to have the chicken fry. But it's so weird how one meal can make you feel bad.
And it's, I guess I've kind of developed almost I don't know if it's more of an intolerance or an early warning system anymore. But now if I even just have a couple of anything that's got wheat in it, I will notice almost an immediate congestion, a little bit of a sniffle, runny nose, and it could be, I could have just a handful of pretzels and it's already sniffing, and I know that, you know, within an hour I'm going to be kind of achy again, and so it's a whole lot easier not to fall into the temptation and feel good than have a runny nose and achy joints.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's crazy how quickly that the food we consume cranks on the inflammatory markers from your joints to your, you know, I always just, when I do that, I feel, you know, it's like I know that hours later that I'm going to feel kind of a little bit bad on that. Not just emotional, like I shouldn't have done that, but actually I start feeling it in my hands. My blood pressure's a little bit raised, elevated, if you will. I mean, it's immediate. I mean, it happens.
You know, something else, everyone, you know, there's always stories about, you know, going to Mexico and getting sick, you know. Well, me and all of my friends that go down there, used to go down there on a pretty regular basis and rent a beach house and, you know, have a good long weekend, what have you. None of us ever got sick down there, you know, but the first meal when we got back to the States, everybody would be sick. And it would be coming out of one end or both, but everybody would feel horrible after their first meal back in the States. Over there, you know, eating fresh seafood and fresh cheeses and locally available fresh food. And when we get back over here, it's all the junk, all of the preservatives,
processed,
and, super processed, you know, too much nasty wheat.
And there's stories like that people, I mean, people who are even like wheat intolerant, they can go to Europe, and in Europe they can eat bread. In France they can eat bread and it doesn't really bother them like it does here. And we don't know. I don't know if it's the iron fortification or if it's because Roundup is used as a desiccant on some of the wheat crops, but that's a common thing.
Well, definitely Steve Burns and I mean, we're about the same kind of body shapes and all that kind of stuff, but I will tell you that we are definitely, when I was earlier in my 20s, I was not so carb intolerant like I am now.
Yeah.
I guess your body chemistry changes over time, doctor?
Yeah, your body chemistry changes over time, your activity level changes over time, your hormones change over time, all that sort of thing. But the fact is, for kids, I mean, kids are supposed to gain weight. They're supposed to be 5 pounds heavier next year than they are right now. And then you kind of get, and so when you're 18, you're still eating the way you were when you were 17, like when you were still growing. And especially in those later years. And so if you continue kind of eating like that on and on, you continue to gain the weight even though you're not growing any taller. You just get a little wider.
But why is this such a mystery, though? Really? I mean, when we look at, 1/3 of Americans being fat or obese, or, why is it such a mystery that, and even with children, where we're seeing kids that are obese and fat at young ages because their diet just is that poor?
Well, I mean, some of it is sugar, too much flour, too much bread, too much processed carbohydrates.
The school lunch program is horrible.
Some of it is just bad dietary advice. They told us for 30 or 40 years to avoid the fat because the fat was going to make us fat. Have you found the fat makes you fat?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Makes you feel good, huh?
Yeah.
Not at all.
Natural fats. I mean, that's the way to go.
And so your personal experience will tell you what's the truth.
People, I tell people, hey, cut the killer carbs, this and that. I've forwarded several people to your videos. I found them very informative, and they were great. I learned a lot watching them. And it put a lot of pieces in perspective that even though I'd read some of the other books, everybody has their own take on it, but you tied several things together all in one place at one time. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But people look at me like I'm crazy for many, many reasons on many, many topics. But when I start spouting off about how horrible wheat is, a lot of people have a really adverse reaction to that, not realizing that the adverse reaction is actually them ingesting the wheat.
The thing that you said, like you get the sniffle even after you have a few pretzels or something that contains wheat, is basically what I've found is what happens to people is once they get to feeling better, and then they have the pretzels or a bun or something, and they get the sniffles or their joints ache or whatever, they realize that they were feeling like that all the time.
Yeah.
They were feeling like that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they didn't know the cause. They just thought, I have allergies, I have arthritis, I'm getting old. And no, it's not just allergies, arthritis, or getting old. It's the food. Your food is doing it to you.
Yeah, and that's so important because we don't recognize that as an American diet.
The only way you know is cut out the wheat, cut out the sugar, do it for a few weeks, and see how you feel. It's like I had a lady who she had horrible irritable bowel syndrome with like alternating like diarrhea and constipation for 10 years. And then I tried to convince her for a year to cut out the wheat. I said, well, just cut out the wheat and see what happens. And then eventually, after a year of talking to her, she cut out the wheat, and she called me on the phone and said, every time I have I've been wheat free for 2 weeks, and every time I have a normal bowel movement, I think of you. But it took her. She suffered with this for 10 years before she even gave it a try to see if it would help.
That's so true. So true. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back here at the bottom of the hour. Listen to this word from our sponsors on the show, and we'll continue on right here on Cut the Killer Carbs Metabolic Coaching. Yeah, one man, one goal, one mission. That is Dr. Justin Anderson, Metabolic Coaching, right here on AM 580. Cut the Killer Carbs. You can check it out on Facebook or check out the website, metabolicccoaching.net. So that is one man, one goal, your mission, as Queen was just singing, right?
Yeah.
Your mission is to revamp the way we all consume our calories in a healthy way. How about that intro?
Just help people one person at a time. One person at a time, get off some of the medications, feel better, reverse your diabetes one person at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can do that, I mean, really, it's really a labor of love, really. I mean, because most of the information you give out, not only on this broadcast but on your websites, I mean, you don't have to join up. I mean, you can. It's cheap.
It's just like Steve.
But I mean, it's like Steve Burns and Colonel Lewis. You know, they went on there and read everything. Said, yeah, I'm going to do that.
So a special thing for September is that this month we're doing the course for 25% off. And I've never done a promo before. If you've ever been on the creating the promo side of things, it kind of takes a lot of work to go through and do the promotion and everything and make it happen. But anyway, we're doing a promo for September only. It's 25% off the 3-month metabolic coaching course. We have a course coming up this Friday. I believe that's the 22nd. And then Friday the 29th. And so if you sign up during September, you take the 3-month course 25% off.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's well worth it. I mean, again, the old saying: you could gain all the wealth in the world, but if you lose your health, what good is it for it to you? I mean, it's just not. I mean, you can. I truly believe that if you're not in good health, it doesn't matter.
I think if you're out there listening to the show, if you're catching it on YouTube, if you're in your car or in the office. You're probably here for a reason. You know, you're not. It's not just you happen to turn the radio to this show. I had I'll tell you this story. I found a graduation speech one time, and it was really inspiring. The best graduation speech I'd ever heard. And so I tried to. It was by a guy named Alan Watts, and I tried to find this graduation speech again because I wanted to hear it again. So I started listening to everything about Alan Watts on YouTube, and I went through lecture after lecture after lecture of this Alan Watts guy. And there were a lot of the lectures they talked about mortality and death. He's kind of an Eastern Western fusion philosopher. And about the same time I read a book called Swallow the Happy Pill, and Swallow the Happy Pill talks about being present. You know, being present in the present and really taking time to enjoy all the blessings and be thankful for the things that you have. And I enjoyed and spent a lot of time with my family, and I enjoyed my kids, and I wasn't spending all of my time thinking about, oh, well, I ought to be working, I need to do this, I have emails to send, I have papers to do. I set all that aside and really enjoyed several months with my kids. And then I had a 21-month-old daughter, Jacqueline, and we put her down for a nap one day, and she didn't wake up. She just died, and the medical examiner never found out what it was.
Really? Wow.
And
sorry to hear that.
The autopsy was open for like 9 months, but I was so thankful that I had spent that time with her and really enjoyed her and being present with my family. And I thought when I was listening to all of those kind of lectures and things about mortality and end of life, and I was thinking about my own. I thought that I was listening to it because it had to do with my own death, or my own end of life story, but it didn't. It was preparing me for dealing with the death of my daughter. So my point of the whole story is this: is that if you've caught this show several times, if you are struggling with your weight, if you're struggling with diabetes, if you have hard to control diabetes or whatever, it's not just by chance that you're here. Just like it wasn't by chance that I listened to those lectures and read that book. You're here for a reason, and there's a plan to kind of help you regain your health. And I would like for you to, if you're going to sign up during September. You can do it 25% off, and we will give you a discount on the program this month.
My wife would like to say, and she does, and again, so sorry for your loss. Yeah. I've never heard that from you before. By the way, when did that happen?
That was about 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, when we were talking, and she said, and of course she's a certified health coach now and went to school to get that and all that, so she's really into this. And she said, no, it's not just about you. You need to think about the loved ones that you surround yourself with.
Mhm.
I mean, if you need to have, I mean, yeah, it's respect for yourself first, sure.
Yeah.
But also respect yourself in a way that you're those that you surround yourself with, your family, your kids, your coworkers, all that kind of stuff.
And a lot of times what I'll tell people
that's what it's about.
is that you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself first if you want to take care of other people. Because a lot of people spend their time dedicated to taking care of their children or their family members, or even if it's their friends and coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to take some time to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people out there that do the right thing and they eat healthy and they work out. And I think a lot of people see these people who are just the absolute, like Mike Ivy, for example. I'll use him as an example since he's on the show regularly on Mondays. I mean, this guy, he's ripped. He's got muscles from head to toe, not an ounce of body fat. I mean, he's not, like a bodybuilder kind of guy. People would look at a guy like Mike Ivy and say, he's just doing that for vanity reasons. Well, maybe, but maybe not. But there's a lot of people who look at that kind of stuff and say, I don't want to be like that, or I don't want to get too big of muscle, or I don't want to. Well, I'm here to tell you that you already stopped at that. You've already not. You can't even pass go at that point, because you've already, in your mind, are already self-defeating by either pointing to other people or even pointing to yourself. I can't do that. Well, you can do it.
Yeah.
But again, it's mind over matter kind of stuff. But the good news is the information's out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's obtainable, and you can get the information and make drastic changes to your health. And once you get to feeling better, then your whole outlook changes. Everything changes. Everything's, again, I'm not going to sit here and say it's all roses from here on out, because that's not what I'm saying. But it's certainly better than sitting there going, man, I'm on 23 medications and I've got 1 foot in the grave.
Mm-hmm.
And so back to my wife, she would say, no, that she always shows me stuff like people in their 70s and 80s that are still, just the fitness goddesses and, stuff like that. And I'm going, and she's like, that's what I want to be when I'm 80. I mean, why do I have to be in a nursing home sitting in a wheelchair? I don't want to be like that. I don't have to be like that. If I do what I'm doing now and have made these changes, then I'm not going to be that person. You don't have to be.
Yeah. People they attribute a lot of things to I'm getting older. I mean, just like you said, you mentioned earlier, your metabolism changes some as you get older, your hormones change some as you get older, all those, and so they think, well, this is just the way it's going to be, because I'm going to be on 3 blood pressure medications or 3 diabetes medications, or take a dozen pills a day. And I see it for patients who come into the clinic, and they'll have a list of 12 or 15 medications. Well, there's 2 problems with that. Number one is that a lot of those medications, like you can have high blood pressure medications that are going to worsen your diabetes, so you need more diabetes medications. And some of the diabetes medications will worsen your blood pressure, and so back and forth they feed on each other. There are a lot of people who are on cholesterol medications who have not had a heart attack. Some of these cholesterol medications, the statins, it's published by the Mayo Clinic that they worsen insulin resistance and can worsen your blood sugar control. So you're taking a statin to prevent a heart attack or heart disease, cardiovascular disease, and that's worsening your diabetes. And a lot of these medications, they just play off of each other. Well, I mean, I would much rather you reduce your chance of heart disease by changing your diet. Do a very low carbohydrate diet, cut out the breads and the sugars. Then you can start to get off of some of these medications, and you can go down from a dozen to maybe 8, and then maybe 6, and then maybe 3.
Now you're talking about donuts, right? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm talking about cutting out the donuts.
Yeah, right. No, I hear what you're saying.
I got a Facebook message this week from a lady, and she said, I've got great news. My doctor just told me that I've reversed my diabetes. Her hemoglobin A1C is down into the non-diabetic range. And so that can really happen, and it happens every day. And if you some people, they'll still have to take some diabetes medication if they've had diabetes for 20 years. They may have kind of burned out their pancreas at that point, and so they need some medications. But other people, if you're diagnosed with diabetes within 6 months or a year, you can get off of some or all of your medications rather quickly.
And then this says nothing, and we're going to go, I think we had a caller here, but, and this says nothing about the fact of reducing the instances of cancer. I mean, we ought to dedicate a show to that someday, about what you eat. You are what you eat, but if you are eating junk, you're just feeding the cancer cell. I mean, really. The school lunch program is a disaster zone. My girls have not eaten a school lunch, I don't know when, probably since they've been in public schools.
Yeah.
They take their lunch every single day. My wife would never allow it in our house. But my daughters are never sick. They don't feel bad. They don't, that's kind of stuff. And if they do get a little, and look, they all
I mean,
kids.
that's a good point.
But it's all about, but a diet though. It's simple, but yet it's not, in the sense that people just don't know. They just don't know.
Yeah. They don't know, and talking to your point about kids, I mean, sending lunch with your kids, that's a great idea. That's a fabulous idea. Send a lunch with your kids, and that way it doesn't have to be bread and macaroni and wheat and sugar
Mystery
and fruit.
something.
Along with
whatever.
the mystery meat, right?
Whatever that is at school lunches.
And so we do that with our son. We send his lunch every day, and it's fairly simple, because we'll send him something like kids like sandwiches, so we'll send him a roll up that's just like a cheese and meat roll up, and they like that. They like finger foods. We'll pop in there some vegetable like tomato or something like that. He likes a pickle, and we usually give him some chips. I think I don't eat chips myself very often personally, but children are a little more carbohydrate tolerant, and children are supposed to gain weight. Adults aren't. And so doing lunch for your kids, that's fairly simple. Having the discussion with your kids, if you're on the program eating a low carbohydrate diet, you should discuss it with your kids, and not in a judgmental way, but I just tell them, I say, I don't eat bread, because when I eat bread, bread causes me to gain too much weight. And for me, since I'm an adult, I'm not supposed to be gaining weight every year. For you're a child, you're supposed to gain weight, and so it's no problem. Having that discussion with your kids, at least you can plant the idea in their mind. Also, when I was growing up and we had something like a bowl of ice cream, we used these enormous cereal bowls, and man, we would fill them up with ice cream, right? Right. One thing that my wife did, and I guess she did it in her family, because she's always done it with our kids, is when we have something like ice cream, it's a little tiny ramekin.
Ramekin?
Yeah, a little ramekin, like a small, short ceramic cup, And in that cup, if you really wanted to max it out, you could put 2 scoops of ice cream, And so, but if we do ice cream or something with the kids at home, then we have them in these little tiny bowls, and it's you can put 1 scoop in there, maybe put 2. And they always want more, but kids always want more ice cream, right? And so also our ice cream scooper was enormous when I was a kid. I remember that. We have a very small ice cream scooper now. So you can do that with your kids. You can educate them. You can send them with their lunch and help to keep them away from so many breads and so many carbohydrates.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, well, my wife tells me that the kids tell her, they don't tell me this, but a lot of times when they go to the lunch cafeteria and everybody's sitting down at the table, breaking out the lunches, the kids always kind of gather around, well, what do you got today? It's kind of weird.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, they think it's weird,
Yeah.
way, I mean, because they might bring, like I'd smoked some Dove on Sunday, and, oh, that's weird. What is that? So, around the house, we eat very healthy, okay? And then so the kids take the leftovers, and that is just so weird for most kids to process.
Yeah.
Where I fall off the train is when It's not around the house. It's what I do outside of the house.
You ought to be permanently attached at the hip with your wife.
I know.
Yeah.
You're not telling me anything I don't know, because I do know that. You're absolutely correct.
She completes you, Wade.
She does.
I've been reading this marriage and relationship book. She's completing you.
Yeah, I need to really pay attention to what she says. And not just what she says, but actually what she does. And even when we go out, I mean, she doesn't. And the one thing cool about her is she won't hammer me for making a bad choice.
I'll tell you. I mentioned that if you're listening to this program, it's not by chance. And I'll give you another couple of interesting examples. Is that so I'm a physician, and we write. I'm a physician. I do cataract surgery. I do cataract surgery on people, and so we have to prescribe eye drops like antibiotics to prevent an infection around the time of cataract surgery. And we had this great drug rep, and he was with for several years. He was with us, and then he left, and we got this new drug rep, really lovely lady, super nice, and she started promoting the eye drops, the same ones that we use for surgery. And so anyway, within about 3 months of her coming to promote the eye drops, her son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And so I had the realization, that's why you're here. You're here because your son was going to be diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And so what we did is I gave her, there's a great website for type 1 diabetes. Oh, it's on Facebook. It's called Type 1 Grit. It's a Facebook page, Type 1 Grit. I gave her the Dr. Bernstein diabetes book because he's a type 1 diabetic who's had type 1 diabetes. He's 83 years old, and he's still in great shape. And he's 83. Type 1 diabetics, they tend to die early of the complications of diabetes because it's a very serious disease. The only way you live to be 83 is if you have perfect control of your blood sugars. And he's done that, and he's taught people to do that for 40 years. And so I gave her the book, set her up with a group, like a type 1 diabetes group, and that's why she was there. And I think that's why you've caught the program, is that whether it's your weight or your blood pressure or your diabetes, it's time to try something different. And so go to the website metaboliccoaching.net, and we're doing 25% off this month. And the other thing, when she left, or when we got that new drug rep, we also got another guy, and his wife is a type 1 diabetic also. And so every time they would stop by the office, we didn't talk about eye drops. We talked about diabetes. And so her son got started off on the right foot as a type 1 diabetic, not doing the high carbohydrate diet with enormous doses of insulin. Instead, he's doing a low carbohydrate diet with low doses of insulin. And even the other drug rep, his wife has been had better control and that sort of thing too by our conversations about diabetes also.
Wow. So, yeah. Well,
it's weird when people show up in your life. You can ask, why are they here? Because they're here. They are here for a reason.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely correct. But it's what you do with the information that's important. I mean, you can hear this all day long.
You got to do.
But if you don't do, then it's not going to do you any good. If you don't do the deal. And again, it's not one of these things where I've done and I've failed and I thought, oh yeah, I do that for a little while and I feel good. Then I fall off the wagon, so to speak, and then okay, I feel bad again. It is a lifestyle change. I mean, you just have to accept it. A lot of people have some trouble with it, by the way, but you've got tapes, you've got a whole wide range of support networks to make sure that you are successful. And if you do run into, maybe a plateau, you incorporate some intermittent fasting into the process. Again, I like my plan. I think I'm going to, again, the plan of intermittent fasting, low carbohydrate diet, and a little bit of exercise. Those combinations for me is really what I'm going to focus in on. And again, but if I don't take the information and actually run with it, then I'll still be sitting here 35 pounds overweight going, yeah, doctor, you remember last year when I was talking about? Okay, well, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, that way you'd have new stories to tell, Wade. You had new, instead of telling stories about how great the chicken fried steak is, you could tell new stories.
Yeah, we'll
about
have to change up the ad a little bit. Oh, that great prime rib with steamed broccoli. Yum-y
I'll
at
tell you,
Cattle Baron.
another interesting story is that I had a cousin, and she went to the website, and she got on the program. She did it for her family and her kids. And so my cousin's children, they call me No Bread Justin. We go to family reunion, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're No Bread Justin. You're why we can't have any bread." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's me." So I put that on my cup. But anyway, my uncle ended up being diagnosed with the autoimmune disease, myasthenia gravis. And myasthenia gravis is where you make auto antibodies. You make antibodies against your own muscles, like the muscles that hold open your eyelids. And he couldn't hold open his eyelids. And so my aunt called and said, "Well, you know, somebody told me you kind of do this anti-inflammatory diet. Let's talk about it." And so we put my uncle basically on a very low carbohydrate diet because it's anti-inflammatory, completely wheat-free, completely gluten-free. And he was seeing a specialist in Dallas for myasthenia gravis. And basically, when he went back to see his specialist, she said, "Man, you're so much better. We don't ever see anybody get better this fast. You're so much better." And he said, "Well, I'm on this diet." And she said, "Well, no, diet doesn't affect it." She said, no, diet doesn't affect this disease.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a lot of that in medicine too. But you know, I guess that my cousin did it so that my uncle would know when to call, and so that he would get better and not suffer from this myasthenia gravis. And myasthenia gravis can be a deadly condition because you have progressive. It's an autoimmune disease. And progressive, the antibodies, they attack things like your eyelids, but they also attack the muscles in your eyelids. They also can attack your muscles in your esophagus and your mouth, and you lose the ability to swallow.
Ooh.
And people end up with things like they can't clear their airway. They end up with things like pneumonia, and so it can be a deadly disease. And autoimmune disease. If you have any sort of weird autoimmune disease, whether it's lupus or Hashimoto's thyroiditis or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever, fibromyalgia, it's an inflammatory disease. And so the metabolic coaching program, a low carbohydrate diet, I think would be something definitely worth trying. And the only way you're going to know if it helps is to do it.
That's true. Good point. Great point, Dr. Anderson. Well, we appreciate it once again and look forward to seeing you back here next week on the show. Of course, check us out on the website, metabolic-coaching.net, or you can call us directly, 448-0322. That's 448-0322. Any final thoughts before we go today?
Just to remind the listeners that this month in September, we're doing 25% off the metabolic coaching program. It's the first and only time we've run a promotion like this. And so there's 2 more weeks. We'll have courses on Friday the 22nd and Friday the 29th. If you've thought about it, if you've heard the program, go ahead and sign up this month, and I'll see you at the metabolic coaching program. It's 25% off for the live program here in Lubbock, to come in to do the program here in Lubbock.
Nice, good deal. All right, doctor, we appreciate it. Check it out on the web. Of course, metabolic-coaching.net. On Facebook, Cut the Killer Carbs, Dr. Justin Anderson. Have a wonderful day, sir. We'll see you back here next week on the show.
Sounds great. See you, Wade.
Stick around. We'll be right back.